future belongs to the fast, and to help you accelerate, we've created a new company, one totally focused on what's next for your business. Accelerating innovation, accelerating next. Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
So this time of year when we pick the biggest jerk of the year, and it is a challenge. There are a lot of people that should have been on this list. This list is so long, it does not include people like Ted Cruz, who have said there should be a religious test to get into this country, and we should carpet bomb the Middle East. Carly Fiorina didn't make the list, even though she told all those atrocious and obvious lies about Planned Parenthood. Mike Huckabee didn't make the list, even though he'd like to basically turn the country into a theocracy. So who did make the list? Well, look, if you did it based on who caused the most damage, yes, the entire list would be terrorists and dictators. But we pick people based on some degree of symbolism, not for just what they did, but what they represent. And we try to get a wide range of people here, and unfortunately there are a lot of candidates. So we start with, and we'll go in reverse order here, and at the end we'll tell you the winner. We start with Ethan Couch. So this is the affluenza kid, and he's in here because, boy, is he a representative of what is going wrong in America today. The defense was, I'm too rich to know consequences. 4 people were killed in a drunk driving accident when he was atrociously intoxicated. And the judge agreed. Yes, the rich don't have to know the consequences of their action. He only got probation. Later, he violated probation and very recently was arrested down in Mexico. So it's him, his parents, who enabled the defense attorney that came up with the preposterous affluenza defense in the first place, and most importantly, the judge and the justice system that allowed it and believed in that defense. Now, number 2 is Martin Shkreli. So this is the guy who decided to take a pill that helps save people's lives that just until recently was sold for $1 and increase it when his company got it was at $13. He increased it to $750 per pill. Well, you needed to live, so you're going to have to pay that ransom, and that is how he did business. He was also recently arrested, also represents, unfortunately, the greed run amok in the corporate world today. Number 3 is Kim Davis. Here's a person who decided on her own, you know what, I'm not going to apply the law. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. I don't care what the Constitution says or what our democracy says. My religious beliefs trump your secular law. So even if it is the law of the land, I will follow whatever my religion says. I'm sure that Muslim fundamentalists would agree. So she basically tried to impose her Sharia law on the rest of us, definitely earning her place on this list. Luckily, she did not succeed, although she is back in office. Still hasn't been fired. Unbelievable. Okay, now, number 4 on the list, Wayne LaPierre. Here's a guy who, after every shooting, came out and said, yes, it was done with guns, and people were murdered, dozens of people in some of these instances. But he had an idea. More guns. That was the answer. And he knows that weapon sales spike after every shooting. So he comes out and says things like this.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
So in other words, everybody grab your guns. Guns aren't the problem, they're the solution. Now he gets paid an extraordinary salary by the NRA, which largely gets its funding from gun manufacturers who make money while we all die. Now, you're worried about terrorism? You should be worried about the gun manufacturers and the agenda they have 1,000 times more as represented by Wayne LaPierre. There have been some terrorist attacks in this country. Luckily, there haven't been that many this year. Some that are terrible, no question. Dillon Rufus, South Carolina, killing 9 in a black church. You can call that terrorism. You can call it a mass shooting. It is done with weapons. San Bernardino, 2 radical Muslims killing 14 people, injuring 21. Yes, terrorism, but yes, done with weapons that they easily access. Planned Parenthood shooting. Yes, terrorism, but yes, a mass shooting. Cop goes in to save the people that were in the building. He gets shot. So all of this happening. In fact, there are more mass shootings, meaning 4 people shot in one incident, than days in 2015. More than 1 per day. And as all those happen, Wayne LaPierre and the NRA cheers and say, yes, we get to sell more guns now. And it was a historic year for gun sales in 2015. I'm sure they must be so proud. They're probably hanging a mission accomplished sign at the NRA. Now, for number 5, we have a tie. 2 prosecutors who decided that they really didn't want to do their job. They wanted to do the opposite. One was Bob McCullough in Ferguson, and the other one was Tim McGinty in Cleveland in the Tamir Rice case. Both of them pretty much admitted, yeah, we threw the case. They went to grand juries, and they told the grand juries, in what is unprecedented move for a prosecutor, do not indict. The whole point of a grand jury is for the prosecutor to go get an indictment. It's normally known in legal circles as the easiest thing you could do in law. There is no defense in a grand jury. In a grand jury, you're just having a conversation as to whether the person should be tried. That's why defense attorneys aren't there. Defense attorneys show up at the real trial. Here, they sabotage it, so there is no real trial. The prosecutors go in there and work as the defense attorneys. Both McCullough and McGinty allowed the defense to present their case. McGinty allowed the cops to speak and give their side of the story and didn't cross-examine them. He put on witnesses on behalf of the defense when he's the prosecutor. And then came out afterwards and said, yeah, I told him not to indict. How are you not immediately fired? What kind of prosecutor goes in and bothers to do a grand jury proceedings where he tells them not to indict? The kind of prosecutor wants to cover his ass, protect the cops, and make sure that no one in authority is ever punished. Power over all of you. They shot Tamir Rice in 2 seconds flat, and McGinty said that it was reasonable, that they should pull straight up to him, not ask him a single question. A 12-year-old boy with a toy gun. Don't ask if he has a toy gun. Take out your gun, kill him in 2 seconds. Reasonable, and I'll help you get off. These are supposed to be prosecutors. Horrific people. Now, having said all that, they still did not make the finals. The finals for Jerk of the Year goes to 2 guys. Yes, Donald Trump, and yes, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Now, like I said, you can put terrorists at the top of this list every year. And generally, we're trying to do 2 things here. One, give you a scope of what happened in the year through the guys who've done terrible things, and also is symbolic as to what's gone wrong in this country. Now, I'm going to make a case for both these guys, Donald Trump and Baghdadi, and then I'll tell you at the end who won. But Baghdadi's on the list this year, even though he is a terrorist, and there's some things we can do about him, but guys like Trump are our problem because they are in our country. But Baghdadi's on the list anyway because he's done so much damage that it's unprecedented. So first, let's tackle Trump. He started his campaign by saying this.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
So he started by calling Mexicans rapists and criminals, so apparently that worked in the Republican base, and he shot up to number 1 and did not relinquish that lead. And he added fuel to that fire by doing one outrageous thing after another. He said about John McCain, he's not a war hero. He was a war hero because he was captured. I like people who weren't captured. Now, that would have sunk any other candidacy, but this was fodder for the Republican base who wanted to feel that hatred, the fear, the ignorance. They bred off of it. Donald Trump was the id of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is largely just id. So he then went on to say, when Megyn Kelly questioned him about how he treats women, she gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. You can see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. He went on to make one outrageous comment after another, making fun of a disabled reporter for the New York Times, mocking his hand motions. He went on to say he saw thousands of Muslims cheering when in New Jersey and in that area when 9/11 happened on that day. Not remotely true. Made up one thing after another. Says preposterous things like, I don't know foreign policy, but I'll learn it when I get into office, and I'll learn it so well it'll make your head spin. He says, I'll be fantastic. The country's a mess right now. Yet this works, and it appeals to people. And then, of course, he decided that he was going to ban all Muslims from the country, including Muslim Americans. If they happen to go abroad for business travel or anything else, they won't be allowed back into the country because he's got to check things out first and see if he'll allow them back into the country. Outrageous, insane. bringing fascism into America. I mean, if it wasn't for al-Baghdadi, this is not a conversation. It would be a runaway #1 jerk of the year. And on top of all that, he also did this at the end of his campaign. So I say at the end of his campaign, but maybe that's wishful thinking. Right now we're in the middle of his campaign and he's solid #1 still. That was a Black Lives Matter protester that they started assaulting in the middle of one of his protests. Yes, in the middle of one of his speeches. Yes, he was protesting. That's when you bring security in or police in. We understand that. You don't have vigilantes attacking people in the middle of your speech. And Trump has had that over and over again. We showed you a video of one of his supporters spitting on a Latino guy, another Latino guy being roughed up in another one of these proceedings. A fancy dinner where protesters paid $1,000 to get into protest. For about 10-15 seconds, a woman is taken and thrown to the ground. And then in this case, a black man attacked. And in another case, some weirdo celebrity or not a celebrity, but a boxer who fights against celebrities with a big green tattoo, attacks another couple of protesters, and all the while cheered on by the crowd and by Donald Trump. Donald Trump saying there, "Get him out of here, get him out of here," telling his goons, his vigilante thugs. A couple of guys up in Boston viciously assaulted a homeless guy because he was Latino. They even urinated on him, and they said, "This is for Donald Trump." Afterwards, Donald Trump said, "Well, some of my fans are a little passionate." And then he talked about how, well, should we kill journalists like Putin does? Maybe. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm kidding. Probably not. But I hate him. I hate him." And he pointed to the crowd, got them all worked up. And as they assault people like this, no one ever gets arrested. Instead, there's chants of USA, USA. In that particular video, they were also chanting All Lives Matter as they were assaulting a guy from Black Lives Matter. Apparently his life didn't matter that much. And another person says, "Light that motherfucker up." So this is what's brewing. It is a toxic brew. I've never seen the U.S. get anywhere near this level of fascism before. When you have these brown shirts attacking people and the guy up on stage pounding his fist and encouraging it. Basically, go get him, do whatever you got to do. We got to fight the Mexicans, we got to fight the Muslims. You can do whatever you want to the Black Lives Matters guys. Don't let them interrupt me. And then God knows what I'll do to the press if I get in charge. And now his spokespeople saying, well, what do we have a nuclear triad for if we're not going to use it? Scary, scary times. But, on the other hand, we have a terrorist that is historic that rose out of Syria and Iraq. His name is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He is the leader of ISIS. Now, they have burned people alive. They have decapitated journalists on tape. They've destroyed antiquities that belong to all of humanity, and they did it gleefully. They have put out guidelines on how to rape your sex slaves. They've attacked the whole world. They brought down a Russian airliner. They killed 130 people in the middle of France. They've attacked the U.S. by attacking our journalists. They have encouraged people who now, even without coordinating with Baghdadi, inspired by him, attack us as lone wolves in this country, as happened in San Bernardino, 14 dead, inspired by this maniac. But unlike other terrorists, he now controls territory. He has actual control over large swaths of both Syria and Iraq. And within that territory, he has oil, which is continuous revenue for ISIS. And they grow larger and larger. Now they threaten Saudi Arabia as well. But maybe even more important than all of those atrocities, and the fact that they have destroyed these two countries, Syria and Iraq, the devastation is untold. Millions of refugees now looking for homes in all different parts of the world. Tens of thousands killed. But on that level, also, the toxic brew of fundamentalism that they spread throughout the world. The answer is violence. The answer is religion. The answer is listening to me, not listening to logic, reason, or secular law. The answer is to do this grotesque violence, and that is how we will win, and that is how we will spread our ideology. That is more toxic than anything else. Now, I know, of course, al-Baghdadi's actual actions where he's killed all these people in the real world does not compare to Trump's antics. Trump's antics, though, are a threat both to the United States, and since the United States has the greatest military ever devised by man, a threat in some ways to the whole world. And the idea that fascism would creep into the United States is so monumentally dangerous. But if it were a tie, the tie is broken by the fact that al-Baghdadi's terrors allow Trump to create that Islamophobia and the bigotry and the fear and the anger here in the United States. So, in a sense, al-Baghdadi is the father of Trump. And obviously, the fact that his crimes are so much worse can't help but weigh on everybody's conscience and in this decision. So maybe we take these decisions a little too carefully and a little too seriously, but we did. We thought a lot about it. But at the end of the day, of course, when you see terrorism at this level in an unprecedented way, the jerk of the year is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, and unfortunately a terror to the world.